Misspelling the title of your game just so you can trademark it earns you a big fat ding.
He's here! He's here! He's here! Help me!
I see that even in video games, Romans speak the Queen's Latin. This isn't just a sin for this game, but all entertainment set in ancient Rome. When exactly did it become the norm for Romans to be depicted with English accents? I'm not saying it's a bad choice, but you would think someone would have tried it with an Italian accent, or hell, have them speak actual Latin. And don't tell me people don't read subtitles. You're reading these subtitles right now even though you understand English just fine. Rome was never sacked by barbarians during Nero's reign as emperor. If you're going to use historical figures in your game, I'm going to have to ding you for historical inaccuracies.
Display this from the highest place you can find. When the barbarians see it, they'll run.
Just a guess, but there's a head in that bag, and it must be someone important if it'll make the barbarians flee when they seem to have you beat. A human head is pretty small though. Putting it up somewhere high means they aren't likely to see it or recognize who it is. Quick time events. The game. Seriously. I know you have to give games a break when it comes to enemies looking the same. Developers can only create so many models after all. But when you see an entire group of identical twins in a cutscene, it really just stands out. How exactly did the barbarians who slipped into the palace miss the emperor standing right by the front door? I'm no historian, but I question whether Romans had the ability to create moving stone doors like this.
The gods may guide us. They never interfere with the affairs of mortals.
Except they do interfere quite a bit in the affairs of mortals, as we'll come to see. In fact, since this game starts out in media res and we have to play through flashbacks to get back to this point, you already know that the gods are interfering.
We will be safe here. I do believe we will be safe.
Well, you might have been if you'd closed the secret entrance to this chamber. There's really nothing between where you are now and where the barbarians are.
But my name is of no import. My story, however, is.
Yeah, sure, be my guest. We're being hunted by barbarians and possibly an undead boogeyman, but sure, tell me your story. This homecoming is way too happy and idyllic for a video game. What do you want to bet one or both of these two will be dead within the next 30 minutes?
Is there something troubling you, Father?
We will talk in good time. For now, let's see what you've learned.
And by that I mean when I'm dying, so you won't know the whole story. Hey, you know what sounds like a fun plot interruption? A tutorial!
She allowed Damocles to return to the world as a vengeful spirit.
I thought your father told you that the gods never interfere in the affairs of mortals. Sending an undead centurion to take revenge on those who wronged him sounds a lot like interfering to me.
Legend says that Damocles was a great warrior.
You are really stretching the story of Damocles to fit into your plot, aren't you? First of all, Damocles was a Greek court official who wanted power, not a Roman general, and all he did was sit on a throne with a sword hanging over his head. Hence the whole famous saying, the Sword of Damocles. He wasn't Roman Batman. However, Roman Batman would make a fucking badass comic slash game slash anything, really. This has to be one of the worst examples of the stuffed into the fridge trope ever seen in a game. Marius' mother got less than a minute of screen time before being used to elicit cheap anger in the main character, and his sister got 0 screen time. Does Anita Sarkeesian know about this? Do we want her to know about this?
That way.
You aren't even going to question any of that. Good to see that the guy who paints climbable ledges has switched to a more environmentally friendly solution. Dead parents really get me motivated into a story like nothing else. Is it okay if I put a sarcasm tag in subtitles? How did you not notice the 2 giant towers with chains stretched between them? When the Britons control this entire area, you should have at least considered that they might have taken control of the chain towers. Shell shock. Shell shock in the classical era. I find it hard to believe that you can swim with that much metal on you. You are still a good distance from the shore. You just led your men in a charge off the boat and into the sea. When did this become Saving Private Ryanicus? They even have a shot of a shell-shocked legionnaire with no arm.
They are a race of rabid bastards!
Racism.
Rome is civilization! Rome is order! Rome is power!
Punctuated. 4. Emphasis.
You will need to deal with the archers posted on the aqueduct. So you'll be starting out alone.
Yeah, I wouldn't want any of that pesky help and reinforcements getting in the way of your one-man slaughter. Just because you make a woman a strong fighter doesn't mean you get to give her a belt for a top. I'm pretty sure any woman looking at that would tell you it'd be uncomfortable as hell. Man, the Wilhelm lineage goes back further than any of us ever imagined. Why the hell did the Romans start building their aqueduct right next to the Britons' sacred temple? That seems like a bit of an oversight. Where exactly do these guys keep all these javelins? Crawling through a narrow crevice loading gate. Even in ancient Rome, we can't get away from explosive red barrels. Gas, oil, and gunpowder are all still over a millennia away. So what the hell is in these things that make them explode? Dude, you don't get to be shocked and appalled at a few crucifixions. I walked through Roman bodies stacked 4 feet high to get to you.
May I present to you Basilius, son of the Emperor.
My brother Commodus
still missing.
Nero didn't father a single son, let alone 2 of them. And Commodus was an actual Roman emperor a century after Nero's death, and was the main antagonist in 2000's Gladiator. Man, this game is turning into Rome fan fiction. Is Caligula or Julius Caesar going to show up next?
You will find your chieftain in darkness beyond the wall, where the lowering barren mountains tower over the black, bottomless locks. Horned men from ancient times roam this land, and of those who venture there, few return.
Well, I guess I should have expected that in a crib from Game of Thrones. I have no one to blame but myself for not seeing that one coming.
This fort, Glot's Hop. It's rumored to be the gateway to Hades.
Don't you mean a gate to Pluto? Hades was the Greek name for the underworld.
Ambush! Clear the bridge!
Well, they might have been able to clear the bridge if you hadn't stopped everyone while they were crossing it. How much you want to bet that Marius dusted himself off from that fall like nothing happened? Fucking told you. I don't know why games even have their characters fall off cliffs anymore. There's no consequence to it.
Rise up, son of Rome.
Roll credits. Still not going to question any of this, are you? We saw this battering ram being transported by the Romans at the start of the level before they were ambushed. Now it's here by the Wicker Man. And why bring a battering ram in the first place? That's a siege weapon. Why wasn't Commodus in the Wicker Man as well? It was even stated that it was built for him specifically since he was an important sacrifice. Why stick a general you just captured into it instead of the Emperor's son?
By the Emperor's mark! His will is done!
Barbarians didn't kill my father. The Emperor did.
Was there some specific reason I missed that tells me why Marius' father had to be killed with a sword that could easily link the barbarians to the Emperor? The barbarians had plenty of sharp, pointy things that would have done the job just fine. And how could you ensure that the one barbarian that had Nero's sword would get the kill in the first place? Was this entire army of Britons with siege equipment just stationed outside the city during the signing of a peace treaty? That would raise a pretty big red flag for me.
Reach our men on the bridge and bring them back.
Considering there were no barbarians on the bridge, they should have had no problem falling back. Instead, they wait until the barbarians showed up. Invisible wall. There was a whole formation of Roman legionnaires holding back the barbarians in this cutscene, but then they disappear as soon as it ends. There's a sin here, alright. A deadly one.
Marius Titus, you are a general of Rome. I brought you here to protect me from Damocles. But you are Damocles!
You should have figured that out the moment Marius told you how his father was assassinated back at the beginning of his story. You did have him killed, after all.
I became driven by one thought, one solitary desire. The desire for vengeance. Vengeance against the Emperor Nero, who had my family butchered. Vengeance against his despicable sons, who betrayed my legion!
Punctuated. 4. Emphasis, especially the ending.
And my story is almost at an end.
Rather than kill you and be done with it, I'm going to continue to tell you my story that you're probably too frightened to pay attention to. Looks like the guy who marks climbable ledges switched back to white paint.
Nothing. Get back to your post. Yes, sir.
Really? You couldn't see Marius' centurion helmet sticking up over the table?
My father was a hero of Rome.
Your father was a great general and a popular senator. Too popular, perhaps. The Emperor is a jealous man.
I get that you're a goddess, but do you have to be an asshole and teleport all over the place while talking to me?
A cold wind from the north whispered poisonous words in the Emperor's ear. Your father, and other like-minded men, wanted to return Rome to its people. So the Emperor had them murdered.
If your game's entire plot has to be explained in one long info dump from a literal Deus Ex Machina, then you probably should have considered taking another pass at it. Jiggle physics. Apparently Marius' family estate had a fully equipped forge. The stripper to customer ratio in this place is too damn high. Marius' Damocles armor is already battle scarred. That's craftsmanship right there. I'm no historian, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the technology to create elevators and sliding floors like this was well outside of Roman know-how.
It's an amazing piece of work, if I may say so myself. Containing a hidden surprise. A small compartment inside the head that will make it cry the finest white wine to symbolize his great love for the Empire. Though I suppose it could be made to cry anything, really.
Since we saw Nero praying to this statue at the beginning of the game, you have to wonder how it was moved to Nero's throne room so quickly and how the blood tears activated at just the right moment.
But Emperor Nero, he can only die by his own sword.
Is there any reason at all to trust this woman's prophecy? She was just introduced a second ago and now the plot has to follow her instructions? The Colosseum wasn't built until after Emperor Nero's death. This is like Ubisoft sticking the Eiffel Tower in Assassin's Creed Unity. Who knew that the Colosseum could transform its very foundation into a beachhead, a forest, and a marble platform in mere seconds? A former Roman general turned gladiator fighting Commodus in the Colosseum while poisoned. Where have I seen this before?
You feel that poison? Can't take any chances, Damocles. You understand. I know I'm immortal, but the plebs can be so fickle.
If you believe yourself to be immortal, why did you seem so frightened of death back when the barbarians were about to burn you alive?
I am Damocles. I am vengeance. You are next.
Punctuated. 4. Emphasis. Again. Fucking hell, really? I'd really like to know how Commander Battalion managed to find Marius on this one rooftop in all of Rome when the entire Praetorian Guard can't.
Let us finish what your father started, Marius.
How do you know what Marius' father was doing before he died? You were there when he was killed and thought the barbarians were at fault as well. Hell, Marius had to have it explained to him by a goddess.
Fight for your father. Fight for your legion. Fight for Rome.
Punctuated. 4. Oh, forget it, my throat is hurting. I would question how British barbarians could have gotten their hands on war elephants, but by this point it's clear that this story pays about as much attention to historical accuracy as Xena Warrior Princess. Considering the fact this thing is a pilum, not a spear, pulling it out of the corpse and throwing it again should be impossible since they were designed to deform on contact for the sole purpose of making sure they couldn't be picked up and thrown again. I've never seen so many plot-convenient trebuchet missiles in one piece of entertainment. Every time the developers need Marius taken out of commission so something bad can happen, it involves a flaming rock.
Son of Rome. Ryse.
Just in case you forgot what game you were playing, the developers name-dropped the title again. How did you get from the courtyard where you were knocked out and surrounded by barbarians to this quiet street? Did that goddess chick teleport you here? Because that's a major Deus Ex Machina sin if so.
You bring dishonor to your men. You bring dishonor to me. You bring dishonor to Rome!
I'm not doing the punctuated for emphasis joke again. I'm just gonna give you 3 extra sins. Boss that we fought and beat earlier in the game is now significantly more powerful for no good reason.
We're not much different, you and I.
We're not so different, you and I, cliché. And how exactly would you know that you have anything in common with Marius? Yeah, Nero had both of your fathers killed, but you couldn't have done that.
Have you forgotten the Oracle's prophecy? Emperor Nero can only die by his own sword. You can't kill me. Only I can. You said so yourself.
Well, yeah, but there's really nothing stopping Marius from running you through, is there? There's no reason to do what some character we only saw once and for no more than a minute told us. You know, neither of these two gods are named in this game. You would think the lady is Nemesis since she's the one who sends Damocles after people, but in the credits she's listed as Summer, and the guy is Boreas, god of the north wind. While using lesser-known gods rather than the standard Athena and Ares is a nice touch, you still have to develop them in order to justify them being here. The Praetorian Guard had to break down a door that was behind Marius, yet somehow all of them are now in front of him and hidden behind pillars in the next scene. After cutting his way through armies of barbarians and Praetorian Guards, a few Praetorian Guards can now deal Marius a fatal injury during a cutscene. Yeah, I know Nero stabbed him, but Marius was poisoned when he fought Commodus and his men, and he still won that one. And if all of these guards were in the room already, why didn't they rush Marius right after Nero stabbed him? How did they get all the way up there? Nero's vault was directly below that statue, yet somehow they ended up high above it. Considering that you're a goddess and you've had no problem helping Marius out throughout this entire game, this would be a pretty good opportunity to save his life. It's the one time where you can get away with a Deus Ex Machina save at the end, and you just let him die. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm actually dinging this game for not using Deus Ex Machina at the end.
Rome healed, and her civilization once more grew and flourished.
Except that Caligula was right on the heels of Nero, and he was arguably even worse.
Rome would endure. From then until the last days of man.
Not exactly. Just ask Istanbul, how long Rome lasted.
Who betrayed my legion!